It's been a while since we've discussed this, and apparently I lost someone in the argument here where Cody Leach was of the mentality that Friday Part 1 explained things for their villain a bit better than Friday 5 did.
You actually get introduced to this character who's going to be...
Look, remember that ambulance driver? Because holy shit, he's the fucking killer and I'm totally invested.
And apparently has come around. This is the person that is the Rotten Tomatoes accredited critic. It's like an astronaut being converted to a flat earther. It doesn't really make sense. So, for the sake of for once and for all, I'm going to explain why Friday the 13th 1 explains their villain and reveals the villain better than Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. And I'm going to put this preface out there because my good friend Brian Lomax will often use words like straw man, steel man, all of this debate bro talk. I'm an entertainer first. Yes, I will be using straw man and steel man and all of that shit. The point is exaggerated to get you to understand just how silly this discussion is. So please laugh more than anything. All right, let's be real. When people say that Friday the 13th, A New Beginning isn't good because Jason isn't in it, that's not really the main issue. It's part of it. The true reason it doesn't land is because Roy, the Jason fill-in, it has no narrative weight. In contrast, Mrs. Voorhees in the original film matters. She matters on a structural and emotional level, and even enhances the viewing experience on a rewatch. We'll start here. Friday the 13th, 1980 has something of a whodunit structure to it. There's mystery. So already Friday the 13th 5 is at something of a disadvantage. The premonitions that Tommy Jarvis has is of Jason Voorhees. He's genuinely haunted by this Jason person. We know who Jason is. And if you're going to dress people up like him, it better make sense. So in 1980, there's a mystery. Someone's killing off camp counselors. The movie opens with someone offing counselors just a year after the accident. And at that point, all we really know, all we visually have to connect the two is the fact that they're driving a green Jeep. I want to remind you that Brian Lomax is the cinematographer of our outfit. The man who works in images couldn't pick up on the fact that the green Jeep is something of importance in the film, even if for misdirection. We're introduced to another character, the guy who's reopening the camp, Steve Christie. What does he drive? A green Jeep. Steve Christie driving a green Jeep is something of a red herring because Steve Christie, as we know, isn't the killer and doesn't make it to the end. But it's effective. It's visual storytelling. Then, in the third act, Pamela, Mrs. Voorhees, shows up in the green Jeep. It's dark. Admittedly, it's quite dark for a lot of this movie, but she's driving a green Jeep. Setup, payoff. It's clean, it's planned, and it works. And when Pamela starts explaining herself, why she's offing teenagers, there's emotional logic.
Oh, I couldn't let them open this place again. Could I? Not after what happened.
However twisted, it's there. She lost her son due to her perception of their neglect. And in her mind, she's punishing the location, the group, the establishment that failed her. We get her motivation. It's trickled in through scenes at the diner, the opening scene. We have an idea of what's going on.
Christy tell you about the 2 kids murdered in 58? Boy drowning in 57? A bunch of fires? Nobody knows who did any of them.
Steve should never have opened this place again. There's been too much trouble here.
The reveal doesn't just shock, it recontextualizes the entire movie. Now let's talk about Part 5. Real quick before I go any further, I'm not trying to make a claim here that either of these movies is something that you want to go head to head with The Godfather. This is all relative, of course. These films are like a potato chip in a world where you really should be eating vegetables. Part 5. At this point in the franchise, audiences have accepted that the dude in the hockey mask is Jason. He's something of a mythic figure. He's died a couple of times at this point. A figure who could essentially come back from the dead multiple times. By the end of Part 4, he's survived enough injuries that would turn anything that isn't a cockroach into mulch. So when we get Part 5 and the masked killer turns out to be Roy the ambulance driver, it doesn't just feel like a bait and switch, it feels meaningless. We went from a supernatural force of vengeance to a guy who just shows up in a few scenes, really has an emotional reaction to a chocolate bar eating kid getting chopped up, maybe says a sentence, and then he disappears for the Scooby-Doo ending that he literally is wearing a mask within a mask that pops open, which explains it all, obviously. The film tries to justify Roy's rampage by saying his son was the kid who got chopped up who really enjoyed chocolate. That kid's death kickstarts the entire movie. But think about it. If that death didn't happen, do we even have a movie? The Jason character is already established at this point. There's no grand scheme, no underlying plan, no momentum. We as an audience only experience Roy being a killer because Tommy Jarvis happened to be at this halfway house on the exact same day that a random outburst caused a chocolate bar loving kid to get chopped up. It's not a setup, it's a chain of dumb consequences. Tommy's PTSD, his trauma, these visions he's having of what we know as Jason, which in his visions have a different mask. This feels like it's going to be the emotional core, but instead it just turns into, oh man, Tommy Jarvis, you have some terrible luck. Wrong place, wrong time, am I right? This entire plot of Friday 5 is the embodiment of, boy, that escalated quickly. Meanwhile, going back to part 1, Pamela's rampage in part 1 is the result of years of grief and trauma. And her presence, when revealed, is deeply connected to the camp, the counselors, and the lake. Remember, she worked there. And of course, Jason's origin. Roy's presence is connected to a photo someone finds after this person's already dead. One villain drives a narrative from the shadows based on vengeance. The other drives an ambulance and shows up in flashbacks, but it really needs you to remember the person that they're posing as. As far as the villains are concerned, there's emotional connection for Pamela. She has a very distinct reason we as an audience can understand. By the logic of Friday 5, any victim's parents could be doing that. So an image of a disgruntled ambulance driver is not enough. And the difference is when he's revealed, we don't really get the motivation. Just, oh, right, he was the father of Chocolate Bar Kid.
The kid who was axed to death at the woodpile was Roy's son. God only knows why Roy kept it hidden all these years, but he did.
Where at least Mrs. Voorhees does some acting and tells us some things. And it connects the dots from the things we learned earlier in the movie. When Friday 5 starts, it's, oh yeah, that Jason, he's still going, man. Haunting Tommy Jarvis. Oh, okay, Chocolate Bar Boy was killed. So I would, actually, you know what? Come to think of it, I would like a prequel for Roy, or a midquel, if you will. I would like to know what trauma Roy was experiencing that pushed him that far over the edge to look into local legend Jason and how he got all that equipment. How did he get the exact same uniform? How did he find a mask with different stripes on it? And where did he get that latex mask to go under the mask? If you're trying to make the argument that 5 is a better time for you, it's better looking, there appears to be more money put into it, sure, of course, this is a question about taste. All of this is in the end. But as far as an antagonist's motivation, a close-up shot of one person posing as another pales in comparison to someone revealing their motivation that we get the information dripped to us over the course of the movie. I want to once again state that neither of these movies are going to go into the filmmaking Hall of Fame, but this is all relative. And again, if you think 5 is more entertaining, all of that, fine. That's fine. But one establishes their villain more than the other. Now enjoy your flat earth discussion.
I guess when he was called to the scene and he saw that it was his own Joey all hacked to pieces, we also found these. I guess he used the Jason thing to cover up.
How do you do that? How do you do that?